I was talking to the wear manager last night, James, and he was
Yeah,
saying he thinks he might be the next for the Tic Tac. And we were just trying to say to him, no, I don't think so.
well, no, he's been there forever, isn't he? So
Yeah.
I'm sure he's been through similar spells where the results don't necessarily go their way, but I'm sure he'll work it out. I know they've had a bit of an upheaval with players, playing staff, haven't they? So
Yeah. He's had a massive
it's,
turnaround in staff. Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
it's
Right.
difficult.
It's
I can vouch for that. It's difficult to yeah,
sharing this out and quite lucky because the Vanarama League normally repost it on their group as well, which is quite nice. The downside is that Zoom have made you can't no longer stream to X on Zoom now unless you pay for the premium account on X.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it, that?
Just a nightmare. So, but there you go. Just has to stay with Facebook for the time being and go that way and go there. But it's not too much of a problem. But welcome to the Repost Non-League Show. We're here for the next hour and really pleased to say joining us tonight, of course, from Exmouth Town is Nathan Smith and, of course, Egg as well. They'll be with us. Welcome, guys. And, of course, joint manager down at AFC Dunstable. Welcome to James as well.
mate.
So, I mean, literally, as we were speaking, just sort of off air or a little bit on air as well, of course, FA Cup draw tonight as well. But I mean, I was starting off with that. I mean, how far is the furthest that you guys have ever got with your individual clubs? In the FA Cup. I'm going to start off with James, but I mean, how far have you ever got? With yourself?
Not as far as we'd like is the short answer. I think we got knocked out by Ware last season in one of the preliminary rounds, which was an unfortunate result. And this season we had a really good result against Sudbury, league above. Played really well, defended excellently, kept a clean sheet, 1-1-0, and then we drew Biggleswade in our league. And it was, yeah, we scored, I think, the equaliser 89th minute, and they scored the winner up straight up the other end. We gave a penalty away in the 96th minute to be knocked out. So, yeah, we went out way too early for our liking. So, in our infancy, we've not got anywhere near the first round proper, unfortunately. So, there's always next year, as they say.
You never know, do you? I
Yeah.
mean, we had Romford on the show, not last season before, and I'm very good friends with their chairman, and he said the same sort of thing, and he said you never know, he said could get a Wembley final one day, and of course the following year it actually happened, and not only did they get to the final, they actually won it as well, the FA Vase, so you never know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about the lads? I mean, how far have Exmouth got?
Not very, not very ever. I think that the furthest they've ever been was the third qualifying round in long before I was alive. So it's been quite a while. In
Yeah.
Yeah, we had quite an unfortunate one this year. Egg will tell you more, but we were sort of fantasy drawing ourselves against National League sides when we played Brixham in the preliminary round, and we thought we'd get to the first quality and then the second. But Egg will tell you it was an unfortunate situation, and we went from somehow you go from 3-0 up and you end up losing up 2-0.
It's,
You know, a player got injured and the game was abandoned, and we had to replay again at short notice. So we ended up with 20 minutes to go in basically all but in the next round, having to replay the game, and then we lost. So
what
it's
was
one
that?
of those things.
Was that a player on your side or a player on theirs?
Player on our side, unfortunately, dislocated his knee, I think, or he's done something to his knee. So he's going to be back playing, which is the main thing, and he's all healthy, kind of, I suppose, on the looking forward. I suppose that's the main thing, isn't it? Really, the FA Cup will come around again next year, but Jack's all right, which is the positive.
No, absolutely. I mean, is it one of those things though, Joe? Do you ever had that where you had a game of Bannon with a player getting that badly hurt?
Fortunately not. In my academy days, we've had a few goalkeepers that have been knocked out, and the game had to be sort of postponed because the ambulance, you can't move them once they're knocked unconscious. I think the one to get them back to full consciousness, but then worry about spinal injuries or head injuries. So didn't want to move them. So just have to tell everyone to go home and make sure you look after the player and get him to hospital. So yeah, not too many times, which is good.
Hmm. I mean, I suppose one question I'm interested in knowing, especially from sort of Egg and Nathan. I mean, good friends of mine. I mean, of course, are down at Mousel. I mean, what sort of a journey is that for you guys?
Far. You'd think it's close. You think it's close because obviously Devon to Cornwall, that's on the map.
Yeah.
It's close. Unfortunately, it's still about 2.5 hours there and back. So when you consider that for what should be a local game in the southwest, it's still not. We've got Helston on Boxing Day, which is a nightmare fixture because when Cornwall's one road in, one road out, and it's going to be very busy. And that's the furthest one for us, like 3 hours. So you think it's close. It's unfortunate.
And that's supposed to be and that's supposed to be your local derby Boxing Day as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's 3 Cornish teams, so one of us had to draw one of them, and Falmouth play Mousehole and Helston got given to us, unfortunately. And they want it to be. They said that originally wanted 11 a.m. kickoff, and no.
We've done quite well. We've had Willand the last few years, and we've had home games. So it's probably time we drove somewhere for an away game. But yeah, it's the M5 ends at Exeter, so we're kind of anything south of Exeter. It turns into a bit of a nightmare.
I know Mousehole said last year, their local derby last year, because when the likes of Helsham and that weren't in it last year, and he was turning around saying it's an hour and a half to Tavistock, which was their local derby on Boxing Day and stuff. It's like crazy stuff.
Crazy. You got Didcot in the league now as well, which so yeah, and so like some clubs are doing 6-hour trips to get to those games.
I know we went down there. About 18 months ago, I think I went down there to see a game at Mousehole, and we got to my sister's in Bridgewater, and it was not even halfway. And you're thinking, we would have been in the car nearly 3.5 hours. We're not even halfway yet. It's just absolutely sort of mental. But I mean, journeys wise, I mean, it's nowhere near as bad for Dunstable. But I mean, for you, I mean, do you know how many miles it is? Your away fixtures?
Do you know what? That's one of the best thing in terms of the commitment for the players and the staff alike. I think the league itself, I think the furthest journey we have last year was Cirencester, which was maybe an hour and a half, but now they've sort of moved over across the leagues. I think our furthest journey is Tame, maybe Kidlington, which is over by Bicester, Oxford, it's still only an hour drive really for everyone. So the geography of the league is fantastic. There's so many clubs around this area. That's probably why you see a lot of players moving about when they, the likes of Biggleswade Town and Berkhamsted, when they get promoted, a lot of their players drop back down into the league again because it's less of a burden on their time and their commitment from their normal day jobs.
I know Mousehoule's journeys this year's 8,500 miles just for games, and I know they played Thatcham the other day, and they were only an hour and a half from my place in Waltham Abbey in Essex. Do you know what I mean? So
I've just Googled the longest journey, and it's Helston to Mulvan, and that's 239 miles one way, and it's 4 hours.
Yeah.
Just mental stuff. And you'll bet your life that after those games we'll actually be on midweek as well, because they're getting called off because of
Yeah.
It happened to Melksham last year at Mousehole. I don't know how long that journey is, but they got to the ground and it was called off.
That's right, yeah.
Imagine how frustrating that would be for them. I mean, even having to Tavistock, it was frustrating for them. That's close.
Yeah, I think they tried to get that game on about 4 times. I think something like those sort of times to try and actually get the game on, which was just madness. But I mean, if we start with James, if that's okay, lads. But I mean, James, I mean, we've done sport. I mean, this year, I mean, what was the the thought process this year? Were we looking at sort of mid-table playoffs? I mean, is it automatic? What was the thought process?
Well, we wanted to kind of the plan at the the last kick of last season. Unfortunately, losing to penalties to Waltham Abbey in the playoffs was, keep the group. Maybe you're going to lose a couple, but add a couple, and then be really competitive again in the league and look to go one step further, either go up via the playoffs or to win the league. Success is that all the bigger clubs come calling to the players that have done well for you, and they all go off and they get bigger, better deals from other clubs, which was disappointing and frustrating. But also, we can appreciate that players want to play at a high level and they want to get paid more money. So that's absolutely fine. So it's certainly rebuilding, and we still wanted to be competitive and then get through the first sort of 10, 15 games of the season to see where we're at, to see what everyone within the league, and see where the strengths and weaknesses are within the opposition, and then try and gauge where we can go from there, really. So short answer is we want to be competitive. Long answer, we've got to work out what our strengths and weaknesses are within the group that we've got at the moment, while still trying to work out other players that may become available later on in the day.
I mean, Paul Halsey and Mark Webstone, from Welling Garden City and Ware, and I talk to them every single Sunday on the manager's view, and they turn around to me and say, "Dave, everybody's going to beat each other. This league's crazy this year." And when you look at it this year, Hadley top at the minute, but Berkhamsted going down to Hertford at the weekend, and it's it's a little bit like that, isn't it? Where everybody's sort of just turning each other over.
It's a bit like what the championship used to be, in terms of you couldn't do an accumulator if you tried. You just can't predict any result. Any fixture, you think someone's going to win, by 2 or 3, and they lose by 2 and 3, and it's crazy, but it's good because you can lose a couple of games in this division and it not affect your league position too much. And like I say, in 2 games we won 3 on the bounce, and we've gone from sort of down the bottom to near the top. And disappointing result of the weekend, but if we win that, we're in the top 5. And we still don't think we're anywhere near our level yet. So yeah, it keeps it interesting, definitely.
Well, I'll tell you that the first non-league team out, Worthing, and they've been pulled against Morecambe. So it's Worthing against Morecambe is the first one out. So Mo Fowle used to play for Enfield Town, who I know quite well. So he'll be well pleased with that draw. So that'll be a real interesting one. Rotherham versus Cheltenham. Boreham Wood against Leyton Orient.
Nice. That's a good draw. That's
a cracker. My dad won't be very pleased as a Leyton Orient fan, but yeah, it's not. And one near you, Exeter City. They've just been pulled out. They've got Barnet. There's a travel for you.
Well, is that away?
Yeah, Exeter at home to Barnet.
They'll like that one. They wanted a lot of. I'm a City fan. I think a lot wanted a non-league team away. They did border the home draws against League One, League Two sides, so they're actually probably happy with that. We've got a stand from Barnet. A little silly fact there, but our away stand was taken from Barnet's old ground.
Barnet flying, aren't they? Barnet doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. Tamworth, of course, used to be in the Southern League. They've just been pulled out next against Huddersfield Town. That's a great game.
Yeah, it's big.
But for them. So, but I mean, with the team now, have you from the way you were talking earlier on, James? I mean, has it been a case of really sort of like having to sort of like almost start again? I know, like Paul Howes, said he's having to start again. Has it been the same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. We lost 14 players in pre-season, and that is our starting 11, and your 3 best impact players. They all gone to other ventures. So it's a case of trying to stick to your identity, stick to philosophy as much as you can, and try and bring in players that you think are going to be able to fit into them philosophies, and that's proved somewhat difficult. We're kind of stop-start with some of our players' injuries and availability, which has been disappointing. But yeah, it's kind of copy repeat, ideally, if we can, from last year, which was a new group of players, never played together before, and it's a process over the course of the season.
The funny face was because if Biggleswade would have won at the weekend, they would have been going away to Wickham.
Oh, really, Wickham? That's a great game. That'd be a great game.
That's who they would have gone away to. Wickham Wanderers if they would have managed to get over the line. But I mean, Wimbledon, how frustrating is that though, as a manager, as you say, just missing out, with Wolverhampton Abbey last year, and then get into that sort of situation where you think, great, this is good. We might stand a great chance here. It's so and so, and then all of a sudden, before you know what's going on, you've lost half your team. I mean, I always ask that question of managers, because I know a lot of people say, well, yeah, well, we tell them when they're supposed to be coming back, when they're not supposed to be coming back. But you never know who's coming back until that sort of first training session that you have. How nervous as a manager do you get on that day?
Well, it's the same week by week. I don't know about the other guys on the show, but it's the same week by week. Unless you time players down into contracts, you can get a phone call at any time to say, yeah, I've had an offer from somewhere else, or you get a 7-day request in from the secretary to say, Club X have come in for one of your players, and you are pretty much, a new team, every other week at the moment, which is really frustrating. It's something I don't really like the way that it can be done on a 7-day. I think a 30-day request from other clubs would be a bit more would be better for both parties in terms of the holding club will be able to have a bit more time to work out shapes and systems without the player that potentially will be going. And it might put off some other clubs that they have 2 or 3 negative results and just go into the transfer market and go and get 4 or 5 of the better players from other teams. So it's really frustrating from a coaching perspective, because you want the players to buy into what you're doing, and if the team's different every week, you lose some kind of consistency and some kind of the patterns that you try and work on are just lost on a week to week.
Willstone, they're going to be going. I think I couldn't see who that was actually. Willstone, they're away. I know they've got a league side, so that'd be an interesting one. It went for a bit too quick. Bristol Rovers against Weston-super-Mare.
Very local. I love that.
Very local.
Walsall, but Walsall Bolton as well is another one that's just come out. MK Dons have just come out. They've got AFC Wimbledon. Oh, there we go. There's a big one.
Yeah, wow.
MK Dons versus AFC Wimbledon. I think that might be the telly game. But that's an interesting one. But I mean, would you prefer then, with sort of like, would you prefer a transfer window like you have in the pro game? Would that make life easier?
I get why they don't, and it is part-time football, it is non-league football, so I don't think we can completely replicate what they do in the professional game. But I think there needs to be a bit of protection for players and clubs that are trying to do it. I say it the right way. It's just our way of, we want to, get a group of players and work with them and make them better over the course of the weeks and months, and and build on something rather than just chop and change and bring in new faces, every other week based on positive or negative results. So I think the 30-day request might go along the way to help eradicate that. But like I say, that's my opinion. I'm sure other people will want it to stay how it is.
Tell us a little bit about Dunstable as a club, because there might be people out there that that are watching that don't know too much about the club. I mean, tell us a little bit about the club, about the players you've got, and of course also about the club in general.
Yeah, they've been flitting around the sort of the step 4, step 5, trying to get into the step 3 football for the last sort of 6 or 7 years under the previous management. Steve Heath was the manager for 10 years at the football club, and he moved on. When me and myself and Joe took over, and the club was taken over by Varsity 9, which is the football program, who I work for on a daily basis. And they're like the custodians of the football clubs. So they've sort of got some structure underneath the first team. They've got under 18s, under 21s that we can sort of try and produce players on a daily basis and push them on to have an opportunity for these 16, 17, 18-year-olds to play men's senior football and hopefully go on to bigger, better things. And that'd be a pathway for players that aren't associated with professional clubs, or they don't get offered professional contracts or scholarships at pro clubs. So that's the kind of business model to try and promote within and try and promote young players to be competitive in senior football. And like I say, we potentially overachieved last year by coming third. What my opinion, and Joe, the other manager, our opinion, we probably should have won the league. But if we look back on some of the results and some of the points we dropped, we probably should have come away with 6 or 7 points more. I'm sure every manager can say that looking back, but we potentially should have won the league. and now we're kind of tarnished with that brush now, where people might come to us thinking we're going to be the same team and same personnel, and we're, like I say, we're completely different. So it's the same badge, it's the same ground, but it's a completely new team and a new club almost.
Well, Cheshire United, they've got they came out against Lincoln City, and Chesterfield have got just missed who it was there, but no, it's the Isthmian Prem side. So that's going to be interesting as well. So step four, Southend, Notts County have just come out. Will they get Wrexham? Normally the way of it. No, they got Alfreton Town. Wrexham are still in there. Birmingham are still in there as well. So it was Horsham, sorry, who they've just pulled out. They're Taunton or Maidenhead have just come out as well. Horsham and Southern League. Taunton, they've got Crawley Town if they win that against Maidenhead. But I mean, lads, yourself, I mean, where did you expect, Exmouth to be this year? I mean, are we expecting them to be playoffs? Are we expecting them to be champions? Where we expecting them to be?
I think we came into the season with just hope that we could just be mid-table and have no issues. We started off. I came into the club for the Southern League time, so we do the media. So we came in. I came in. I think we both actually came in like the first season of the Southern League, which is the highest the club has ever been. So come up through the Peninsula, then over COVID, they got promoted second time of asking, Western League or maybe first with the suspended seasons. Yeah. But they got to Southern League, and then I think you saw that with Bemerton last season. We came in, was second in the league. I'm like, I'm joining a serious team. We're gonna get, this could be a team that gets playoffs, and then sort of reality hit, and we got found out a little bit and ended up dropping down to, I think we finished 14th in the first season. The second season was an unfortunate start. By December we had 6 points. And it was looking very doom and gloom. We lost a few games that left us thinking, oh no, this is it now. This is the season done. We're going to go down. It's all about rebuilding now. But things changed in January. Dave Pearce came in alongside Kevin Hill after he got sacked by Bridgewater, and results started to change, and we ended up finishing third bottom, but because of the I can't remember, Hamworthy had gone down. Yeah. And then so there was only one relegation spot, and we were able just to beat Bolton to it, and we was able to confirm that with a couple of games to go. And I mean, I will tell you, this season has been a completely different scenario for us. Yeah.
So one just came through. Just to interrupt you there. Sorry, Wrexham got a Harrogate Town, but Harborough Town from our league have just been pulled out. And instead of getting like what you'd hope for, like a decent Sutton United versus Birmingham was the other one, and Harrogate have got Tonbridge Angels.
Oh no!
So it's like an non-league situation. But Newport County against Peterborough is the last one that's just come out as well. But I mean, this year though, I mean, going okay?
Yeah, the club brought a lot of new players in. Dave and Kevin kind of overhauled the squad. A lot of the players have been with the club since Peninsula, gone through the Western League and into the Southern League. And there was kind of an overhaul in the squad. This season, we've only just recently lost our first league game at home and conceded our first league goals. So I think we're the fourth or fifth at the minute, comfortably in playoffs.
Yeah, 6 points behind Yate, yeah.
Yeah, beating Yate at home, I think we're going to be one of the very few sides to beat Yate. It's a complete 180 on the pitch. I think it's surprised a lot of people. There's always this saying that my quote is that there's never a dull moment at Exmouth Town Football Club, and even by our standards, this is pretty staggering. Long may it continue as well, because last season was pretty stressful. I don't think anybody wanted to go back to the Western League after the club spent so many years trying to build to move on from the Peninsula and Western League to get into Southern League football. It would have been a shame to have dropped back. But yeah, Dave and Kevin Hill have pulled off wonders, as has Andy Rowlands as well, who's the goalkeeping coach and been the assistant. So
it's interesting though. I mean, we were talking earlier on about, and again, James might be able to say yes or no with this as well. Thatcham Town, for instance, come in, been moved over, stuck into, come over from the Isthmian leagues, come into the, into this Southern Division, and they did quite well last year. Now this year, they're really struggling, down in 20th to start with. Only 7 games, but 6 points. Do you think that travelling situation also causes issues as well for a team? Getting used to that sort of extensive travel.
We played them on the opening day, and some of their players were saying they were closer to like central London than they were to us, and that I do feel bad for them. They did bring some supporters, and we were talking to their players and stuff. And I think they've been given a, a raw deal a little bit, but then there's always seems to be one club that kind of doesn't fit into things. So hopefully they stay up. They're a really nice club, and hopefully they can survive and then be shifted laterally next season. But it's a long old way to travel.
Yeah, it does seem weird. And that, James, I don't know if you've seen the makeup of it. You've got like a cluster of teams sort of here, and then all of a sudden Didcot and Thatcham are up here. There's a real sort of like big difference.
It makes it really difficult for recruitment, doesn't it? I think you could be the best coach in the world, but you've got to get the buy-in from the players ultimately, and the availability to train, whether you train once or twice, 3 times a week, and then obviously the travel on the match day. The distances you guys are talking about, that's you're leaving early Saturday morning, you're getting home late Saturday night, and you don't get the financial rewards to compensate you for that time, really. So you're doing it for the love of the game, but to get everyone to buy into that and commit to that on a 22 games a season, 22 oppositions a season is really difficult. So I feel their pain, definitely.
Mm. I mean, is there any sort of? I'll start off with Exeter. Has there been surprises for you this year? I know we're only not 9, 10 games in. Some on 7, but I mean, has there been surprises this year of teams that are up there that you wasn't expecting, and maybe teams that you were expecting that are not up there?
I think us. I think we're the team that probably no one was expecting to be up there. I think we've had sort of the weird change in, as James was sort of talking about, teams expecting the same side. It's been sort of different now, whereas I think obviously the first 2 seasons teams have sort of turned up knowing it'll be tough, knowing the pitch maybe not what they quite want it to be, but they can get at Exmouth. They know quality-wise that they're on a level with them or better. Whereas now teams are coming to defend and get a point, and that's presented a really new challenge to the coaching staff that they've not, to be honest, it's not quite sunk in yet. We've had some tough defeats, tough draws, and just like games where we've been very scrappy because teams are adjusting their game plan now, and James, maybe you can speak to this as a manager, when that sort of identity shifts, what, as a coach, what goes through your head when it's like, oh no, these teams like really respect us now?
Yeah, definitely. We will be able to dominate possession and play, to try and play competitive, combination football in the final third. We will kind of play through a bit old school in terms of the academy approach of playing total football, but that's what we believed that we could do with the players that we had at our disposal last year. And we would pass teams off the pitch a lot of the time, and a lot of teams that were a bit more physical and a bit more direct, they imposed their threats on us, and we had to learn to defend quickly as a group of young players. But what physical teams couldn't do is for long periods of time keep up with the tempo of our game, of the way we move the ball. But like I say, this year people are coming to us with kind of holding us with a bit of respect and fair play, that they know how we were last season. But like I say, we're 15 brand new players, and we are trying to emulate the style of football, but it's just quite not there yet because of the time period we've had with them. So like I say, last year it took us till about Christmas time to start playing and start seeing the patterns of play come out that we'd work on really hard in the training week. And teams would come up with a counter press or counter play. So we have different challenges, but like I say, different personnel. You're kind of trying to reinvent the wheel again, and trying to instill those philosophies into the players. So it's been a challenge, yeah.
Mm. And of course, lads, you got Willand Rovers on Wednesday night.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then do you then finish that game and then go early Thursday morning and set off for Thatcham?
Not quite. No, 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Get there sharp and get there on time, because it's a really, really busy schedule coming up. It's the first of quite a few of those away games. We talked about Thatcham and Didcot. We've got Didcot the next Saturday. Tuesday we've got Bashley, which is not a fun one on a Tuesday. I've took the day off work for that one, so it's Azazeg, I believe. So so there's a lot going on. It sort of culminates with it's going to be a really testing run for them, because we've got a big game as well against Plymouth. I mean, probably they're 21s if we're being honest, but on paper Plymouth in the Devon Bowl. So lots to look forward to. But it's one of those tests that we'll have with this new slightly bigger squad that we had, because last season we were naming 3 substitutes on the bench, including Kevin Hill, who was a manager that's not played in about 6 years. But now we've got a pretty big side, and this will be a real test of them now because it's 8, from Larkwell, it's 8 games in 4 weeks.
I mean, it could have been worse, of course. If that Mousehole game was an away game as well, you'd have been going to Thatcher. Mousehole did actually all in quick succession.
We played Mousehole at the end of the season last year on a Wednesday because it got postponed, and I think the players we lost 4-0, got battered, and the players sort of because it was it's a nightmare midweek tie, but it is what it is. That's how it that's how it can be at this level, especially when, as you say, the structure is all sort of everywhere, and you need to get all the southern teams in. We've got to face those challenges.
When you live in the West Country, you get used to traveling like 2 or 3 hours to get to civilization. Really, everything's kind of 2 or 3 hours away, so it's kind of built into you when you live down here.
Yeah, well, I'm actually heading up there. Actually, well, not as far as you, but I'm heading up to Bridgewater again, next week, not this weekend, the weekend after. So the old carnival. So that'll be good fun going up to there. But yeah, I look at it sometimes, and I mean, I know this league would probably be a little bit different because it would be sort of sometimes maybe a bit impossible, but because of the amount of people who've got to travel the distances. But sometimes I do look at it and think, come on, guys, let's try and see if we can't get these long journeys, sort of first game of the season, the second game of the season, third game of the season, and then maybe sort of like at the end of the season, and keep it away from that bad weather. Because as soon as you hit one of those games, for instance, I will use the Mousehole game. If you get some bad weather and your game gets called off on the 23rd, they've got to come down to you, on a Tuesday, so they've got to come to you on a Tuesday, which they are doing anyway. But I mean, but they're going to come down to you on that sort of on a midweek. That to me just seems absolutely senseless. You'd think you'd want to try and get those games, the longer ones, definitely on a Saturday, or if they get postponed, look at the fixtures and go, look, you should be playing so and so on this day. Well, what we do is we'll take that game out and stick it on a Wednesday night, and you can play Mousehole at home, or you can play Thatcham at home on that day instead, and shift into a Saturday. Do you think that's feasible to be able to do?
In theory, yes, but sometimes it's obviously not practical and not able to be done. Sitting kind of in committee rooms, our previous club, I know that when I was there, we would have loved to have played all the local teams midweek and the further ones on a Saturday, but it would be nice, but it's kind of a bit of a pain because we've already played Bideford away in the league. That one is one of the closer ones, and we play Willand tomorrow. So after those two, it's kind of a bit. Even Tavistock's nearly an hour away, so it's still a bit of a pain, really. It would be nice if we could have a few more of the southwest teams kind of come up, so Barnstable or Ilfracombe or Buckland, kind of the Devon sides, to be promoted, but it doesn't obviously always work like that. Budgets and being quite rural as well, there's only so many players of a certain standard to go around, so it would be nice, but I don't think it's as practical as that. So it is what it is.
It needs a bit of a windfall, though, doesn't it? In the Southern League, so everybody can get 3G, so you ain't got to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in Devon in our league has 3G, do they, Nath?
Not in Devon, no. I know Bishops. No. I think Bishops Cleeve do, and some sides do. We've tended to do quite well on 3G, but it's one of those that obviously a lot of the Exmouth, quite a traditional club, they prefer the grass. So I don't see that change happening quite to the complete infrastructure yet.
No.
James, fan of 3G?
Yes and no. It's we train on it. The players train on it. I think players are more used to playing on 3G than not these days, or 4G as it is now. But yeah, the fixture congestions are it's just a pain, isn't it, for everybody? When the games get called off. So I can see why a lot of clubs move over. One, for the financial income that they can get in. They can rent the pitches out when they're not using it. But yeah, the pitches are so hard to maintain, which I appreciate when the groundsmen work really hard. But there's so many games that are called off. I think the back end of last season, I think we had 10 games. I think we had 5 games in 10 days, which is just it's a nonsense. Talk about player welfare, or players are getting injured. There's fatigue levels, and they're getting injured left, right, and centre with pulled hamstrings and quads and God knows what. Because they're playing too many games because there's a fixture pile up later on in the season, and then early part of the season when the pitches are perfect. You could have 2 weeks in between games. And I think, the way the FA Trophy and the FA Cups kind of worked out, we could have gone 5 weeks without a game, with no resolution to rearrange fixtures against other clubs that are also out of the competitions. But then they're quite happy, the league, committees to have players play 5 games and 10 games on wet icy pitches, which for me makes no sense.
I mean, in the Central League, who do you see? Who, when you first started the league, was it a little bit like the two lads, as I say, Welling and Ware both said to me that they thought the two teams that to look out for were Berkhamsted and Real Bedford. I mean, would you disagree?
No, I think generally you can. It's the same at the top of the pyramid, isn't it? The Premier League, the team with the most money generally has the better players, and the team with generally the best players will have, the best team and be the most competitive. I think Real Bedford and Berkhamsted have recruited well. They've got some good players. They've got some. Berkhamsted have got the experience. Well, Bedford have got some good young players as well as some good ex-professional players as well. So they'll be up there, I'm sure. But like we've already said about that division, everyone can beat everyone on their day. And so it's one of my colleagues last year called it the bipolar division, because you just literally don't know what you can get. It can be complete contrast of performances and results. So but Burko and Will Bedford will be the two to if you finish above those two teams, you're doing all right.
I mean, to back that up, I mean, you beat Enfield 4-2 and then lose to Leverstock 4-0. I mean, it just shows you, doesn't it? And for the lads that don't know, Leverstock are at the bottom of the table and Enfield are up somewhere up near the top. So it's that sort of, as you just said, anybody can beat everybody. It's just crazy. It's just absolutely incredible.
And you don't know the context behind a lot of results, do you? Everyone just sees the scoreline, don't they? But we had 5 players missing from what would arguably be our perceived best lineup. That's no excuses. We still felt that we were going to be competitive on the day, and the players we put in the team. Like I said, we had four 16-year-olds in the squad. 3 of them played, from the beginning. So we backed the young players, but it was just one of those days where, a bit like on our first game of the season when we lose 6-0 to Flackwell Heath, it's one of those days where you wish you hadn't got out of bed.
I mean, again, put into context, sitting there in 12 points, 8 games. We know 2 games in hand on Welling and Aylesbury, and you're a point behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, we're in no rush to look at the league table or to talk about where we're going to be. I think once we played everyone once, we'll know where we're at. Like I say, a few surprises up there already, like Hadley and Aylesbury United are up near the top of the division, where potentially people wouldn't have, apart from obviously Aylesbury and Hadley, wouldn't have suggested they were going to be up there so early. But it's about putting a run of games together. We've got 4 games, I think 5 games in the next 14 days. So we've got really busy Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday schedules coming up. So you pick up 2 points average per game, and like you say, you're in and around the playoffs, which is where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Flackwell Heath again, revenge on the cards for you. At the weekend, and then Aylesbury United away, at home, Beaconsfield Town away, Tame away, and then the big one, Berkhamsted at home.
Yeah, we played Berkhamsted already this season. We lost the penalties in the FA Trophy to Burko, and they rested a few of their key players. But it was competitive, and we'll back ourselves to play anyone and beat anyone on the day. But that's football, isn't it? You need 6, 7, 8 players to all be on have a good day. And unfortunately, on Saturday we had probably 1 or 2 players that were competitive, and the others had a bit of an off day, to say the least.
And it's really weird because we're sort of 10 games in. And we've been doing, I think it's about show 12 or whatever it is of the new season. And not one person's come on the show in 12 weeks and moaned about the referees. Have they improved?
No comment.
I suppose as media, we can say they've not got worse, I think is the polite way of saying it.
There are some good ones. I'm sure they say the same things about the managers and the coaches. I always approach everyone with respect and humility. But when a few obscure decisions, don't go your way, then it can be quite difficult to not be slightly irate. But yeah, there's some interesting characters. Put it that way.
I mean, Exmouth guys, I mean, tell us a little bit about the club as well. I mean, James has told us a little bit about Dunstable, but tell us a little bit about, behind the first team. What else is there in the, what is the club makeup?
So the club has gone on this meteoric rise on and off the pitch, I think. I went to my first game in 2015 there was 50 people there, and there was the two stands. By 2020, kind of when COVID hit, the supporters club formed to kind of do some stuff during lockdowns, and since then it's kind of gone from strength to strength. So they've put the turnstiles in preparation when they were in the Western League. The turnstiles come from Anfield, so someone went and picked the turnstiles up. There's a wooden kind of surrounding fencing and stuff. We've got 2 new stands. The supporters club's got over 100 members now. They're really active with the club, putting gigs and social events on. We're averaging about 250, 300, Nath, isn't it?
Yeah, it's around that. Yeah.
Yeah. The club's taken on 2 facilities as well for youth team football. One's used by the first team development team, and the other one is the academy. And the academy use both facilities and stuff for clubhouses. The club is for a town that's kind of the end of the line. Literally, the train doesn't go any further and the buses don't go any further. It's refreshing to kind of see a non-league club that's got such a reach. We see kids coming to games now wearing Exmouth Town shirts. I see kids and families walking around with Exmouth Town shirts in Exeter, and MTC, which is the supporters club's merch, their hats and scarves. So it's a club that's gone from humble roots and is kind of continuing to thrive and to push on, and that's kind of down to the MTC, who are the supporters club, the committee, the supporters. We've got a membership scheme where instead of a season ticket, supporters pay a monthly fee and they get into the games and they get money off for their travel. They get food. They can come to the social events for a certain money off. I think they get some money off in the club shop and stuff as well. So it's everything that the club does is about the community and the supporters. And it's never a dull moment there. I mean, even when we were bottom this time last year, it was people still had smiles on their faces and people weren't falling out. Everyone was still behind the players and the coaching staff, which was kind of, you always worry when you kind of fall to the bottom of the league and you've not won in months on end that everyone's going to start falling out and it's all going to fall to pieces. And at no point did that happen. And I think that's kind of testament to the club. And me and Nath have come at it from not being from Exmouth. I'm not even from Exeter, to now being there for 2 seasons, and we absolutely love the place. Yeah, it's a great club to be at. And yeah, that's
I
it.
think sometimes it's amazing how sort of just little things happen inside a club, and all of a sudden you start seeing that sort of ingrowth of people turning up to games. And I know, I think one of the games when I was when I was down at Harlow, you see kids walking onto the pitch. We just had sort of like a playoff semi-final defeat, a playoff final defeat, to get into step 3. And all of a sudden you've got kids coming up to the players asking for autographs and getting them to sign their boots and stuff like this. And you got like the captain of the side asking the parents, do you really want me to sign his boots? Like, they could, because the players, that was the other thing. The players for me just couldn't believe that these kids were seeing them as such heroes that they wanted them to sign stuff for them. And then again, on the other side of it, on sort of retail sort of side of it, you look at Enfield Town. When I've been at Enfield Town doing stuff for them, they sign a sponsorship deal with WWE, believe it or not, WWE UK, NXT UK, and they had the WWE shirt with like the logo on it, and that sold like so many shirts you cannot believe. Do you know what I mean? Just because it had the WWE logo on it and the NXT logo on it, but just simple little things like that where they managed to get it, and even and you can still see it on their Twitter page and stuff as well. Triple H actually made the announcement in America that they'd actually teamed up with them, giving it a full bravado, like as a wrestler sort of bravado on it as well, which was really incredible. That just shows you how little things like that just make it just explode all of a sudden, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that. I mean, as a wrestling fan myself, if Triple H did something with Exmouth Town, I'd probably lose my mind. But I think it's another thing, like in terms of the club, improvement. They've sort of, I don't know how to word this in a way that makes sense, but their sort of presence has gone up because you can't drive in. Exmouth's quite a popular place for people in Devon. A lot of students come down. You can't drive into Exmouth without seeing the ground. But for most people, if you're approaching it from Exeter and onwards, you cannot see it. And they've started to really improve how it's presented, and you're greeted by some of our lovely volunteers when you come in, and it's just, people don't come to Exmouth, and I mean this in the nicest way. They probably haven't always come for the football, because the football's not always very good. So they've come and they just fell in love with the club, and they go on to away games, and they can go on and for a bit behind the curtain, especially in the last couple of seasons. Less so now; it's got a bit more professional. But they're getting drunk with the players, and all this stuff that they're really enjoy, and so it becomes a really like great relationship for these guys who can come here and I'm sure it's the same at Dunstable. I'm sure it's the same across a lot of non-league, but it's a great social venue for people to have, and I think Exmouth, for an example, have capitalized on that really well, and you can see the relationship with the players. We've got a player called Ace High, who's an Exmouth Town legend, been at the club for years. Is the minute he gets subbed off, he walks off and he lights up a cigarette and gets a pint and starts drinking with the fans. It's these players like that and characters like that are what make Exmouth very special. I'm sure there's countless stories across non-league as well.
Well, someone's just released on the Southern League's Central Football Chat that a gentleman called Johnny Evans at ex St Ives has just signed for Kettering Town. So, if you know Johnny Evans, but I mean, it's just sort of, I don't know. How was I trying to say? It's non-league football is one of those sort of things you just turn up to one game and you almost sort of like get just completely hooked on it. I mean, was that how you guys had it yourselves, or or three of you? Was it a case of just turning up to that one game and you're getting hooked, literally just pulled in? Jan?
I think look, I'm slightly envious with Ed talking about what's going on at Exmouth there, because that's something that is to be improved upon at AFC Dunstable. There's no real community. It's a shared site with Dunstable Town, which has its own complications, should we say, with sort of dual hosting at the same site, and to have a small town like Dunstable have two football clubs, and obviously the split partisan, of the attendances. So that's quite difficult to get the engagement right and get that connect with the community, because it's not somewhere where someone would go for social. It's slightly out off the beaten track. So there's no footfall really. There's no passing trade. So you've really got to draw them in by the football, and I don't think that the football is always the thing to draw people to non-league. It's about the social. It's about having a pint and having a burger and going with your mates and not being ripped off, or what they feel like they're getting ripped off. You pay a tenner to get in, and you can get in. I think since I've been involved with the club, I've got two young kids. My wife is not a football fan in any stretch of imagination, but when the weather's nice, she brings the boys, and it's a nice day. Like you say, the kids all running around the side, all playing their little games. The parents get involved. We're, like I said already, we're a young team, so a lot of their parents are still coming to watch them. And that brings a nice little community there, which is great. And like I say, the playoff games, we got to a final at Kenilworth Road last year, and I think there was 1,000 people there. And the playoff game that we lost on penalties to Waltham Abbey, there was something, I think we had like 850, and we'd love all them to come back, but they don't all come back, and it's down to us and down to the football club and down to the community and the Beds FA to try and get that engagement, because not everyone goes to football matches. I find that such a shame. I always say to the young academy players, go and watch live games. It's not about, I love, I'm watching football all the time, and the Premier League is obviously the pinnacle, and the Champions League is the pinnacle, but they're so far away from that level. Then go and watch what is achievable. Go and play, go and watch your local non-league team, and to see where you're at. And if you think you can get played step 3, step 4, then fantastic. Then do something about it, and work hard and get in, because you can not only earn a relatively good living, step 3 and above, but it gets them off their arses and gets them outside, and all that good stuff that comes with it.
So are your fans getting drunk with your players?
What my players are old enough to drink, never mind bloody get drunk. So no, we unfortunately we've got a nice little core of, I'm sure every club's got the diehards. We call them the ultras, which is a bit of a laugh, because they're a few of the old boys that have just been knocking about forever, and they go through thick and thin, good times and bad. But we'd love to build, and we'd love to connect with the community and get some more engagement. Like I said, we've got an academy underneath us, so we're still in the FA Youth Cup, so we get some engagement in the FA Youth Cup games. And we get 200-300. We probably get more attendances for the Youth Cup games than we do for the senior games. But it's about then trying to convert those ones that do come, and trying to find a way to get them back and get them incentivized to come and watch their local team and the players that they know.
Do you get a game though, in non-league? Is there a game that I mean, as a Premier League fan, if you've got a Premier League team, you look at it and think, oh yeah, that's the one I'm looking for. When's that? What date's that? Is there one inside this, inside the Central League that you always look at and think, well, when's that going to be?
I try and get, again, I'm sure everyone does, quite sad that we are as football managers, when you're not working, you're working because you want to go and watch a game, because you want to see what's going on. And like I say, because we lost lots of players last year, they're all dotted about, in different games. So I try and go and watch step 3 games, step 2 games. I've got friends that are managing in the National League as well. So try and get as many games across the three divisions as I can to try and see what's going on and where we're at as a club and where we're at as a player and staff, and try and improve upon and look at it from that perspective, really, rather than go and have a couple of pints and watch a game, which unfortunately I'd love to have a social life, but I don't really got much of a social life either.
But I mean, is there a fixture though for Dunstable that you look at and go, that's the one I'm really looking forward to?
I always just want our players to play in front of a crowd. So last year it was Bedford Town. Bedford Town, you'd have 300, 400, 500 away. And go and play at the Erie, which would always be a good one. So that was the one I looked for last year, and I enjoyed. This year, like you say, the teams with a bit of a crowd behind them. So the Royal Bedfords, probably going to get the bigger crowds. The Leighton Town, they can get 600-700 people on their day. So those kind of teams with a bit of atmosphere is what you do it for, really, and it's a good experience for the young players.
Lads, what about yourselves? Is there one game you look at and you think that's the game I'm really looking forward to? Got to make sure I'm off work or whatever else that might crop up.
I'd say Willand, because you can get the bus there, so it's very easy to get to. So it's the only one that you don't have to travel to. So we don't win there, but we look forward to that one. But I think Manor Farm's always one that people look forward to. It's a really nice club down there. I love Falmouth as well. We went there, obviously lost to them last 2 weeks ago. And that was a really, really nice club. Obviously, they've got the F Troop and they make a hell of a noise during the game. And it's quite a unique atmosphere for our league. And so that's one that I think, even though it's a bit of a journey, that's probably, one that I'll look forward to in future seasons, because I think they're a shoe-in to stay up and probably even get top half.
We've got a friendly rivalry, I think, with Westbury as well. A lot of the supporters get the train up to each game, and they're met at the station by an opposition supporter. So someone from Exmouth Len went and met their supporters last season with a sign saying Westbury Town, even though he knew who they were at the station, and a bag full of cans. Personally, Tavistock is always the game I look forward to, because that's the club I was at previously before coming to Exmouth. So that one's always nice, and it's the friendliest rivalry as well. Both clubs kind of know each other. It's always very heated, but as soon as the final whistle's gone, everyone's all friends again, and the managers and the players are all in the bar together, and a lot of them go on a night out together as well for the respective games, home and away. So that's the one I look forward to.
I think for me, over the last few years, one that I've been to that I thoroughly enjoyed. I don't know why. It just felt like it wasn't home because of how far away it is, but it felt like home when you went in there. And it just felt really fantastic atmosphere in there. Was down at Mousehole. Going down there and with the drummers and all the rest of it. And some people go, oh no, not drums. But these guys were so rhythmical as well with the drums and stuff like that. It was fantastic. But what about rivalries? Have you got is there a big rivalry, James, in the Central League for Dunstable? That when I say rivalry, I mean like gets really heated.
No, not really. Not that we've experienced in the time that we've been there. Like I say, every game's pretty much a local derby anyway. So there's always a bit of needle, and a lot of the players know all the other players from every team. So there's always that social element where you just want to get one over on the people that you know and you knock about with. So there's always that. But there's no real local derby. Obviously, the local derby is Dunstable Town, but they're division below. So we've not had that opportunity to play in a cup competition yet. We might do that in the Beds Cup, which would be interesting, and I'm sure good. We played them in the FA Youth Cup, Dunstable Town, and that was always a heated affair. These last minute penalties and red cards and God knows what. So to do that on the senior level, that would be quite nice.
What about you, lads? Is there one that's really heated?
I actually think the local derby would be, and this is going to sound stupid because they're in the Championship, but Plymouth Argyle, because we've got a lot of Exeter City fans, so that is the team. Unfortunately, I think we're a bit the fans. There's not like Tavistock is super friendly, Willen's very friendly, but all the clubs that we have a sort of rivalry with, there isn't that. Whereas we've had a couple of Plymouth players, like our captain Mike Landricum, he's from Plymouth, and they're known as Janners, and they get a bit of stick from our fans because the rivalry there. So it probably actually will be that Plymouth game in the Devon Bowl, because that's where all the old school Exeter City fans will come out of the current Exmouth Town fans. The Exeter City heart will come out. So that is probably the rivalry, because everyone else is just very friendly.
Yeah, we don't play Parkway enough, really, do we, to have a rivalry with them? So I think it's just anybody from Plymouth, but we don't really play a lot of Plymouth teams.
But you want to play Plymouth because they've got Rooney there, you get a few in.
That's it, but I don't think he's going to be there, unfortunately. Even though I think that would be incredible if he was there. But there was an article where they mistook Plymouth Argyle for Plymouth Parkway. So I think the Sun and the Plymouth Herald both wrote it, and they've sort of manifested this fixture for us, and now we've got it. So
they said his first game for Plymouth Argyle would be against us, and we were playing Plymouth Parkway, and our Twitter and social media accounts went off the wall. We were sat there like, what have we done? Like pre-season, and it wasn't until my dad sent us the message. He was like, apparently you're playing Wayne Rooney. I was like, no, we're definitely not.
I think in funny one of the funny things, I think one of the sort of the most sort of hostile atmospheres I think non-league for me was a few years, I think it was 2016, and Harlow had lost in the playoff final the year before against Whittam. They'd beaten them twice in the league and then lost in the playoff final for them. So stayed down, and then it was a year when Needham Market and us both were literally slugging it out for the Division North title in the Isthmian League. And it was literally going backwards and forwards, and both scored over 100 points that season, and both scored over 100 goals that season. And Harlow missed out on automatic promotion by 1 point. And the last one game of the season was actually Harlow against Needham in that game. But it was a great atmosphere on that day, and it was, as you can imagine, loads packed into the Needham ground, because if Needham would have won that game, they would have won the league on that day rather than going into the final day of the season. It ended up being a draw, but we got to the playoffs, and we were in the playoffs, and we were at home in the semi-final playoffs, and you had to then go back I think it was a year or 2 years. Basically, Harlow signed a player, and they went to sign a player, went to play him, and the secretary then turned around and went into the manager and went, "They can't play him. He's signed, died. You can't play him. Don't put him on the pitch." He said, "It'll be a nightmare. Don't touch him." So he didn't do that, reported it to the league at the thing. And of course, it ended up costing, eventually, because of something that Thurrock did as well, it ended up costing Thurrock points and also Tilbury points, and Thurrock got relegated. So, of course, there was this massive, it was very hostile between the two clubs because of that. And that was a semi-final match between that day. They finished 26 points below us in the league. Literally every time we kicked off, they scored. And it ended up being something like about 3-2 or 4-3 or something after extra time to Thurrock. And then Thurrock then went to the atmosphere was like toxic as you've ever seen in your life. It was unbelievable in there because it was an evening game as well under lights, and it was unbelievable. You could feel like the intenseness of the game. There wasn't, I won't tell you, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in there, but you could feel the intensity of it. There was fights in the dressing room after. It was just unbelievable thing, and they went on to play Brentwood Town in the final, and Brentwood Town beat them 5-0 or something stupid like that in the final one. I think it was just because of that intensity of the semi, they got to that final. But that was probably the most intense game that I've been involved in myself, I must admit, because it was getting a bit naughty at one stage, I must admit. But I mean, are you guys all ready? I mean, sort of last question, I suppose, for both of you. I mean, if you get to that situation where you get into the playoffs or you get automatic promotion, are the clubs? This is another thing that, Paul Halsey said to me the other week. He said sometimes you get that, like the Bedford situation where they went up and came back down again. Berkhamsted went up and came down again. Northlea went up and came down again. Are the clubs, in that sort of right sort of set up to go into step 3? And do you feel that if you went into step 3, you'd be okay in step 3? Or do you feel you might struggle if you went into step 3?
I think the team we had at the back end of last year, I think we were confident that when we were in the playoffs with that, if we can get through and get promoted and we keep that group together, we could be competitive again on the pitch with that group. But obviously, it's a massive financial commitment for the owners, because we're on minimal budget as it is at step 4, and obviously because of, like we've talked about already, the geographical sort of upheaval and the logistics of step 3 football, I think, and that commitment, you have to pay players more money. You have to pay players more money, and that obviously increases the budget that becomes available to yourself, which I think would probably have been the biggest challenge. But then again, you are getting bigger crowds, you get more people in the door because the clubs are bringing more supporters. So how that would have worked, we're not sure. We were just more worried about what's going on the pitch and think, we'll worry about that when we go up kind of mentality, rather than, I'm sure the board would have had strategies in place if we did go up and how they would have counteracted those problems. But yeah, look, I'd love to be in that situation again where we're worrying about how we're going to cope with playing step 3 football next season rather than worried about other bits and pieces.
Lads, do you feel in that right state, Mike?
I think, to be honest, it's probably a bit too early now for promotion in the general place of where the club's at. It's obviously come a long way in quite a few years as they wrapped up, and it would be a big step to get up there. And when talking that, it's more just outside of it. That's the big thing I learned in non-league football. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with is, it's more than just the playing squad. You've got to think about so much and so many different things that go into getting a promotion. It's not just about going and doing it. So there probably are a few years away. We sort of look at clubs like Taunton and Tiverton for inspiration in that sense of clubs that have built themselves up, and it's maybe been gradual, but keeping sticking to the plan, sticking to the progress. And there's definitely been a progress. I mean, if we can finish anywhere above 14th, it's progress. It's the highest the club have ever finished. If 13th to second, so anything is progress. So this current squad, and this big group of fixtures coming up, it's going to be interesting to see how we do, because I do think we have a team that's capable of getting to those playoffs at least.
Mm-hmm.
I think mine and Nate's little corner of the club media, we're ready, but that's a bit different. I think Exmouth Town's always trying to progress, and the board and Stuart, the chairman, and everybody involved in the club's kind of will go up when we're ready, if that makes sense. I think the step into the Western League was a bit of an unknown, and I think coming up to the Southern League was a massive unknown, and I think did happen a lot quicker than they were expecting. And being at Tavistock when they moved into the Southern League, the step up is massive from Western League into this step. So it's going to be an even bigger step. Even the travel is probably going to be massive. So I don't think we're in a rush. I think we're quite happy to steady the ship, I think, is the way the club's trying to progress it. They're trying to say it, but we'll make it one day. The club's progressing, and I think that's all we as supporters and people involved kind of want. And I think that's what no supporters, I think, want from their clubs, isn't it? To see them progressing on and off the pitch, and kind of have that hope that one day they're going to make it to their version of the Premier League.
I mean, I just looked at it, just quickly looked at it just as you were talking there. You look at Bedford Town, James, they went up, came back straight back down again. They've sort of rebuilt again, and they've gone up there and sitting, I think they're top, and I think, of the Premier Central at the minute. Yate Town got relegated, didn't have a great time of it last year. Now all of a sudden they've sort of rebuilt a little bit, and now sitting sort of 4 points clear at the top of the Southern League. And maybe it does take that, that extra year. As like Mousel last year found out, they didn't quite make it last year, but they're still sitting back in the playoffs. Helston have come up this year; they're sitting second. Can they hold on? Do you know what I mean as well? And I think you just got to have that extra year almost to get your feet to get yourself back up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I look, Birchie's done brilliantly at Bedford Town. They kind of looked like they were going to run away with it at Christmas time last year. It looked like they'd win the league by New Year really, and then they went for a bit of a sticky patch, and they had to go and beat Waltham Abbey in the playoff final ultimately. But they're top of the league now, aren't they? At step 3, that 3G pitch is in there now, so that's going to help. Probably bring in some revenue as well, which they can pay their players. And players like Leon Lobjet, who has been around the block and scores loads of goals, great player. He gets any penny that he gets paid, he's worth, by my opinion, because he scores lots of goals and he's a fantastic player. So yeah, some clubs aren't ready. Some clubs have just evolve organically, and some clubs are just forced into it by circumstance really. So like I say, myself, Joe, the other manager, and the board are always like, yeah, let's try and push up, let's try and finish as high as we can, and we can work on the strategies of how we're going to stay in the division, when that opportunity presents. So that's the challenge, that's the target, always is to get promoted.
And some big players in that league as well, no bigger than Noel Ranger.
Yeah. There's a few random ones. You look at some team sheets and go, I know that name for somewhere, and they've been around the block. So,
but just very quickly, just talking about sort of big teams and big players and stuff. There's a big team that's no longer got a manager anymore because the legend has resigned this week, of course, and it was of course down at Cheshunt, and so I mean that's a big sort of shoes to fill to try and go in there and and to try and fill Craig Edwards' boots. I mean that's almost like an Alex Ferguson job, isn't it? To going in there after him.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a fantastic job for somebody. Like I say, that someone that's been there for so long, and knows the club inside out and how it works, and what's going on behind the scenes. It's a challenge for someone, but it's a good football club, and I'm sure they get the right person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, guys, we wish you all the very best for the rest of the season, and hopefully we'll speak to you again later on in the year, and hopefully you'll be sort of playoffs or automatic promotion when we speak to you maybe again in the latter half of the season. But a massive thank you for giving up your time tonight to Nathan, to Egg. And of course, James missing training tonight, so we really appreciate your time as well. But we'll be back next week, and of course with the show, and we'll be back with the manager's view on Sunday. Don't forget, of course, by the looks of things, it's going to be a very quick Southern League Goal of the Week show tomorrow. But we've put that together. Not many come in so far, but of course it has been Cup weekend, so that might have something to do with it. But a massive thank you to everybody as well that voted for the show in the Football Content Awards. Now we just sit and wait until November the 21st at Tottenham's football ground, and just to see if we've managed to get over the line this year with that. But a massive thank you. But from all the lads and from